Hello, my name is Kathy Kreitler, and I'm here on behalf of the St. Genevieve Community Service Farm in the Domestic Violence Division. We have the group Synergy in St. Genevieve, where you can go to get assistance in the things we'll be talking about today, which is mostly domestic violence, self-care, and self-esteem. We work on all those topics. This is our phone number, and we also have an email address if you're interested in contacting us through that. And then we can also talk through that also if you want to have conversations that are anonymous. I have with me today Mary Ann Robertson. She has a Step at a Time counseling center and is also with the Safe House for Women in Cape Girardeau, which is a domestic violence shelter, and they do a lot of outreach. She has a master's and is a licensed professional counselor and has agreed to help us today understand exactly what abuse is. I believe that a lot of people think that abuse means black eyes and bruises that they're trying to hide, but abuse does not necessarily mean that. And Mary does have experience dealing with men and women who have been abused and the circumstances that lead up to it and how they can reach help from that. So we're going to have a conversation with her today about that. Mary, what do you think abuse, what's the lead diagnosis, or the definition for abuse?
Mostly abuse is power and control over another person. It's a pattern of behavior to reach that goal. It can be simple emotional abuse, verbal abuse, all the way to battering and actually criminal activity as such.
Mary, when you see abuse, what are the signs that you see that a relationship might have some abuse in it?
Yeah, a lot of jealousy from one mate to the other, maybe a habit of looking through people's phones, being very obsessive compulsive about their mate's behavior as far as when they're leaving the house and trailing them. I've seen as crazy as hiring a criminal investigator to follow a spouse around, and that of course is stalking. It can be there's a lot of definitions for abuse.
Mary, in St. Genevieve, we have a poster that the Community Service Farm has sponsored, and it says that abuse is anything that prevents a person from being free. So would you agree that if you're in a relationship and you would like to do something and your partner does not want you to do it, would that be considered abuse?
Very much, yes.
So if you love someone, you would let them do what they want to do.
And let them have a voice. It's very important for everyone to have a voice and an opinion on what they need and want. And so oftentimes people go along with things. They're coerced into doing things, everything from their sexuality to how many children they have. And that is abuse.
Yes. I know it's hard for some people to think that it's abusive if their husband wants them to do something, even though they're not in agreement with doing that. Sometimes in relationships there are compromise, but if you feel like you do not want to do it, then you should not do it, and they should respect your wishes on that, because they're going to respect you if they truly love you.
Yes, and that sort of brings up the idea of consent. You have to give your spouse consent on what you want and need, and it can be on a daily basis or an hourly basis. What you want today might not be what you want tomorrow, so it's very important to give yourself a voice in a relationship. Make sure you're doing what you need to do, because in a family relationship, your children are going to know. If you're unhappy and you're suffering abuse, it's a family situation.
We're going to offer a longer video on St. Gen TV, and you can get a hold of it by either contacting County Health, the commissioners in St. Genevieve. You can contact Synergy, and the phone number and the email address is here. But I wanted to let everyone know that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 10 men will experience domestic violence in their lifetime, and they have 19,000 calls per day nationally for domestic violence, and 20% of all violent crime is from domestic violence. So there is a lot that goes on there, and we are here to help. You're not alone, and you can get help. So please join us on St. Gen TV. Hi, my name's Kathy Kreitler, and I'm here on behalf of the St. Genevieve County Community Service Forum. They have a division that is addressing domestic violence in St. Genevieve County, and I would like to explain a few things that you're going to see in the following videos. First of all, domestic violence, many people feel, is untouchable and very drastic, like you need to be put in a shelter or you need to get help drastically, and that is not the case. What we want to show in these videos is that behaviors that might not be the perfect way to do things, that it's affecting your life, that might make your life not happy, might make it depressing or put you down to where you don't want to do things or not be the person that you were meant to be. We want to address those behaviors, and even though you'll hear in the videos that they are called abuse, it is abusive if it is holding you back. That's a terminology that is used. However, it doesn't mean that you need to be put in a shelter. It means that there are behaviors that can be changed to make your life better, to make you happier, and to enjoy your family more and your life more. So I hope that you listen to the videos and get some ideas from them, ways that you can make your life better and to change it so that you're happier. But if you need any help, there is plenty of places you can go for counseling, which Ann Robertson has a step at a time down in Cape Girardeau, and she does have experience with trauma and abuse. But there is also the Community Counseling Center in St. Genevieve and multiple counselors in St. Genevieve County and in surrounding counties that you can get help from. Also, the Community Service Forum has a group called Synergy, which addresses domestic violence and any kind of violence or trauma that you're going through. It's a peer group, so there's not a professional counselor. However, it is a place that you can go to bounce some ideas off that you have going on, ideas you can change some behaviors differently, you can get some self-esteem, and most importantly, support and friendship. You can contact the Synergy group by calling 573-883-0668, or you can email them at synergy.ste.gen@gmail.com, and they have meetings on Thursday evenings, and you're welcome to come. But if you would rather text or email for anonymity, that is perfectly fine too. So if you need any help, please reach out, and it doesn't have to be drastic to where you need to be in a shelter. It can just be with questions you have on how to handle a certain situation or behavior to make your life better. And that's what we're here for, is to make your life better. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the videos to come, which has the Synergy group that's available to the citizens of St. Genevieve. We're here talking about domestic violence with Ann Robertson in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. She has a practice, a step at a time counseling, and she also is employed at the Safe House for Women. She is a counselor with them. She has a master's degree and is a licensed professional counselor and deals with people, men and women, who deal with violence in their lives every day. Hi, Mary.
Hey there, good to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Kathy.
What is the definition for abuse that comes to mind when you think of your clients?
You know, it's pretty simple, because the main goal for an abuser is to gain control, and that helps them feel better about themselves, because actually an abuser is a hopeless, helpless person. And when they try to get power and control over another person, they feel better about themselves. Of course, it's a very sad thing to be abused.
So when people think of an abuser, they think of a big burly person that's, taking over, but actually you're saying emotionally that they're trying to make up for things that they lack by putting other people down, similar to what a bully does.
Yes. Most people who are abusers have had a lot of trauma themselves in their life, a lot of trauma and violence, and so they perpetrate more violence on someone else, unfortunately, sadly.
Okay. Well, today we're going to go a little bit more in depth with Mary and talk about what domestic violence is. You'll have to excuse my throat. I've had some recent problems with laryngitis, so that's why I'm talking kind of strained today. But one thing that makes me think of abuse is people who what is consent is my question here. Like if somebody wants to do something or is prevented from doing it where they do not give their consent, but yet an abuser would want them to do those things.
Yeah, and that can be as simple. Of course, we think today that the headlines are on the sexual meaning of consent. Teenage girls and high school girls and college girls say, I went out and I had a drink and unfortunately bad things happened and I didn't give them consent. Consent is something that you give on a daily basis, an hour-to-hour basis. You can't say, oh, I have a date with Joe and I said it's okay if we make out today, and then the next day I say, no way. And he reminds the gal that it's okay, was yesterday, why isn't it okay today? That's abusive situation, and consent means every hour on the hour. It doesn't mean one time. It's always important for a woman or a man to have a voice in a situation, whether it's family of origin or whether it's a spouse or whether it's an intimate partner. So violence comes in many ways. It can be emotional abuse by demeaning your partner. It can be abusing children. The biggest part of children and abuse is neglect. That's also abuse. So as before, it can be as drastic as actually battering another person.
So with you speaking on different types of abuse, what a lot of people think of in abuse is physical abuse. So what they talk about then is like black eyes and bruising on the body that people try to hide if they're in that type of abusive circumstance. But there are other types of abuses like you hit on. You were talking about emotional or verbal abuse, and that can be as easy as somebody just talking down to you, somebody saying you didn't look good that day, when the purpose of them saying it was to make themselves feel better because they look better than you do, when the reality doesn't really play into it at all. It's the fact that they want to make themselves better. So, and emotional and verbal abuse goes down a similar walk, because whenever you say things, of course, that affects people emotionally. You talked a little bit about sexual abuse and consent. When you were talking, I was thinking that consent can be with sexual abuse, but it can be with other types of abuse too. I know sometimes when you're with friends or family and say everybody wants to go to a certain party or go to a certain restaurant or something, and you go ahead and go because you would like to go with them, but then they want to go and do something else, like go to somebody's house and go drinking or go bar hopping out of the blue. They want to do that, and you didn't really say you would, but they're expecting you to do it. So what's happening there is they don't respect you. They're not concerned with your overall feelings. What they want to do is what they want to do, not necessarily what you need to do. So is that a form of abuse?
Yes, that goes back to power and control. They want to control your life. They want you to do what they need you to do, because it makes them feel better. It makes their goal and their less empathetic life for other people. Power and control is all about abuse, whether it's sexual, reproductive, financial abuse.
Yeah, so if you would go with your friends and they do want to go bar hopping, it doesn't mean absolutely every time it would be a quote abusive situation. But if you are against it and you go against your feelings because they're demanding you go, that's when it becomes abusive.
Right.
So setting up your personal boundaries is very important. And also the people that you're with, if they truly care about you and love you, they will respect your wishes, and you do not have to go further with them. You can go back home if you would like to. Is that correct?
Exactly. So preventing you from making your own decisions is abusive. Whether it comes down to here, take another drink or watch some pornography or engage in activities that you know are destructive to yourself or others, that is abuse. And most people don't realize it, but living with someone with an addiction is also abuse. There's a lot of ways that people take away your voice. If you're living with someone with an addiction, you probably don't have a voice, because their needs they become king baby in the life, and so you're not able to express your own needs. You have to do whatever king baby needs you to do, and that is abuse.
Mary, you've been talking about several different types of abuse. I was wondering if you could tell us more about digital abuse, which would be like using a computer or phone.
Yeah, today's lifestyle, we all have computers, we all have smartphones, and some of us are on social media. And unfortunately, I see a lot of women and some men that lose their voice because maybe someone decides, an ex decides to post some demeaning pictures of you or an event that happened between the two of you, and they refuse to take it off. And that's, of course, out there permanently. There's no way to remove it from another person's post. But it can also be filming you and putting it on certain websites, anything that you do and you have not given permission to that other person, that's digital abuse.
So that's another way of being abused. But when you hear the word abuse, a lot of people think, like I said earlier, the black eyes and the bruising and all that. But abuse is about power and control, like you were saying. And abuse doesn't have to be so severe that you need to call and get a shelter for it. Identifying what is abusive and what are people in your life, if they're doing things that are complimenting you, are showing that they love you and showing that they respect you, those are things that you want in your life. And if you have in your life things that are negative, where people are using their power and control or trying to influence you or doing things that you don't like, those are boundaries that you can set and identify what you do like and what you don't like. And it could be as easy as saying, hey, I don't like that. And that could stop that type of behavior. It doesn't have to get to where you have to call a hotline or something like that. Mm-hmm. We're talking about things that are less, than horribly severe, but identifying triggers that you could easily make a boundary for if you use some help from either Mary offers help, and then we also have the Synergy group that could help you identify those things and make better boundaries so that you can have a happier life for you, your children, and your family. Mary, there's some signs of relationship abuse. Mm-hmm. We'll touch on that in just a little bit. Division, we have the group called Synergy here in St. Genevieve County, and our email address is synergy.saint.gen@gmail.com if you want to get a hold of us that way, or the phone number is 573-883-0668. I'm here today with Mary Robertson again, and we're down in Cape Girardeau, where she has a Step at a Time counseling service, and she also works for the Safe House for Women, which is a domestic violence shelter that has a lot of outreach services, and she provides counseling. She has a master's degree and is a licensed professional counselor. We left off, Mary, when we were talking about recognizing warning signs in a relationship. Can you talk about that a little bit? The guide that I have here is talking about telling you that you never do anything right is something that you see sometimes.
Yeah. Really, an abuser can chip away at a person's ego and self-esteem by being demeaning, statements like, oh my gosh, you're so fat. Probably not fat at all, but they can use those words to chip away at how you feel, which gains them the goal of power and control over you. The worse they make you feel, the more control they have over you, and they can get you to do things that they need instead of what you need. So it's very important to keep that voice. Certainly don't want you to answer back if they're going to hit you in the face, but at some point you have to learn to set boundaries, because in essence we teach people how to treat us by what we will take from them. So
Mary, what about showing extreme jealousy? You touched on that a little bit in an earlier segment. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so extreme jealousy does not belong in a healthy relationship, because going through each other's phones, keeping time, how long it takes to go to the grocery store and back, none of those things are what healthy people do. A healthy relationship has a give and take. It's not a relationship where a healthy relationship isn't where someone questions you how many people did you talk to when you went to the public library today? That's not a healthy relationship. People are supposed to have friends, and one person shouldn't be jealous of who you have for a friend, or pick your friends, or say demeaning things about you or your friends, because that takes away your voice.
So Mary, if I have friends that aren't friends with my boyfriend, say, which I don't have a boyfriend, I have a husband, but anyway, my partner, if my friends aren't the same as my partner's friends, does that mean I need to give them up so that he's not jealous of them? And what if his friends are different than mine and I don't like hanging out with his friends? How do I handle that situation?
You know, every family of origin have different traditions, and that's how we learn what to accept and what not to accept in a situation with another person that's supposed to be loving. But it's not loving for someone to make you give up your friends. It's not loving for you to have to only have your husband's friends. You need your own friends. You need your own topics. You need your own clubs and organizations to go to. You need to be you. You need to find yourself. You need to find out what you need in life and become the person you need to be, not what your husband needs to be, not what your family of origin thinks you should be. You have to find your own voice and find your own self. And as Kathy said before, you have to be free.
So what you're saying is I can have friends on my own that don't hang out with my husband's friends, and he can have his own friends, and that's okay. I'm not being bad by not being his friend.
Certainly
Too many friends
not.
here.
Certainly not being bad. Certainly we all need to associate with people that we have interest with. And maybe your husband's friends are not going to care about talking about what color eyeshadow I use or who do I go to see do my hair. We have to have our own set of friends. That's healthy. That's what healthy relationships look like. Your husband has people he can go out and go fishing with and go golfing with or whatever, and you have friends you go shopping with, you go to the library with, you go to support groups with, you do what you need to do, he needs to do what he needs to do. That's a healthy relationship.
So a healthy relationship doesn't mean I have to be with a person all the time.
Exactly right.
Well, that's good. That sounds like fun. What about if my partner doesn't want me to be with certain people?
That would be another case of him just being jealous of you as a human being. And jealousy, there's no place in a healthy relationship. If you're in a loving relationship, that person wants to see you grow and change and become who you are. And so
if they don't like my family and they don't want me to be with my family, they don't want me to be with my friends, they don't want me to go, to church or whatever, those things are bad things. Those are like red flags that I should be alerted to.
Absolutely, because that's a form of isolation. And when someone's trying to isolate you, they will soon have power and control over you. And a person who wants that kind of power and control usually has no empathy at all. They don't care how you turn out. They don't care how you suffer. They don't care how much of your own voice you lose.
So, I lost my train of thought. So you want us to be free. If they love you, they want you to be free. And if they love you and respect you, they want you to do what you want to do because they want you to flourish and to be happy.
We all have a different definition of love, Kathy, from our family of origins, from our religious background, from our ethical backgrounds. But my favorite definition of love is by Bell Hooks. And Bell says, love is a combination of commitment, care, respect, trust, and knowledge. Knowledge is knowing that if I want to go shopping on Saturday with my best girlfriend, that it's going to be okay. I don't have to come home and ask my husband if I can do that. I can say midweek, hey, Saturday I'm going shopping with Kate and I'll be gone from 12 to 4. That's a healthy relationship.
That sounds good. I like those examples, Mary. What about controlling financing? If I want to go shopping on Saturday with my friend Kate, what if I don't get any money from my husband? If he says I can't take money, is that a red flag?
Yes, very much so. Financial abuse can be a form of coercion. You know, if you don't have control of the money you make, that's not giving you a voice. How can you plan on how many children you're going to have or not have, where you're going to go on vacation, where you're going to go out to dinner and how much time? Maybe as a wife, when you get to be 40 or 50, you decide your life needs to be fuller. Maybe you need to go back to school. If you're not in control of your own finances and don't even have enough money to go shopping on Saturday, how are you going to make the decision to go back to school?
Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about finances and saying what you need, so my partner would also have needs of things that he would want to do. So we need to sit down and discuss it more so than him say, no, you can't go because we don't have money.
Right. So financial, non-abusive relationships have a give and take, Kathy. There's a healthy, I need this for this weekend, and you need to go fishing with the guys next weekend. So let's see if we can pool our money here and see what we can do this month with what's going on financially.
That sounds like a good idea. There is one issue that's really touchy, and it's about what goes on behind closed doors in the bedroom. In the bedroom, what if you don't want to do certain things and your partner does want to do those things and you're just not comfortable with that? Is that something that you should just call as sexual abuse, or is there a negotiation that can occur where love and respect would go over?
You said the exact right words, Kathy. It's all about love and respect and trusting. You know, it goes back to that idea of consent. You need to act right then and there. I'm in this romantic mood and these things are going to work out, and are you both in agreement for that to happen? And if that's not there, then that is sexual abuse. Whether you're married or not, if you're forced in any way to do something that's against your values, that's against your ethics, that's against how you feel right this moment, that's sexual abuse.
So one thing that we were talking about at the beginning of this segment, or segments we've had, is how severe things are. And so it's like sexual abuse if you can't negotiate an agreement between the two of you. And if you don't have like a plan ahead of time of what you're going to do behind closed doors in the bedroom. So it's not sexual abuse if you work that out. But if it is, even though you don't have bruises on you, it would be good to seek attention and talk to a counselor and find out how you can negotiate these things. So we're doing this video interview to help people understand and catch these things early so you can learn how to deal with them before it would get as severe as sexual abuse. So that's what we're talking about. That's why we're talking about this hard subject about behind the bedroom door. So just negotiation, and if you need to seek out professional help to help you negotiate what you're comfortable with, the two of you. Okay, let's see what else is on my list is what about intimidation? What if he didn't really hit you or say anything, but just the way he looks at you or you look at him that intimidates him? Is that considered abuse?
That's psychological abuse, manipulation. Once again, it's taking away your freedom, because if someone demeans you, if someone calls you stupid, if someone tells you you're not going to be able to do this or that, that's intimidation. And intimidation is what keeps us from having a voice, saying, wait, I need to do that for my own self. I need to be able to make decisions on my own. And for someone to tell you that you're not smart enough to do that, that would be psychological abuse.
Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have to really be verbal. You know, he can just, or you can just look at somebody bad in an intimidating way. And the power and control is what you're trying to get out of that look. And that is abusive.
Yeah, when you make someone fearful for your own self, for your own, what you want to do, for what you believe in, when you instill that fear in someone else, that could be considered psychological abuse and manipulation.
My next thing on my paper says insulting your parenting or threatening with harming your children or something like that. What should you do if you get in a situation where you feel like someone's threatening your parenting, criticizing your parenting, or saying that they're going to take your kids away?
Unfortunately, that's something that happens a lot during divorce procedures and when custody arrangements are going on. Of course, it can happen in a normal marriage also, but usually that sort of thing, like, if you don't do what I want, if you don't let me keep the kids for 2 weeks, I'm going to take your children away. That's not the way it works. There would have to be a lot of legal stuff going on before anyone could take your child away. Mm-hmm. So that's just more intimidation. Most women love their children deeply, and when a male says that to them, it's absolutely terrifying. Mm-hmm. And the male is used to getting what they want when they hear that. But that's not a healthy way to negotiate, of course, and it's frankly, it's illegal.
Yeah. The next topic that I have is intimidating, using weapons or guns, which we know that is bad, and you should seek help when that happens. And then also destroying any of your belongings or your house would also be reason for you to seek out some help, some counseling, or help from a professional. Mary, we've talked a lot about things today, and we've got more to talk about. We're going to do another segment, but thank you so much for your interesting answers. And it's very difficult situation, but we're trying to highlight to get it before it gets too bad, to identify some issues that you might have that you could just talk through and negotiate through before they would get worse. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy, and I really appreciate all the work you're doing in St. John County.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Kathy Kreitler, and I'm back again with Mary Robertson. I'm with the St. Genevieve Community Service Forum in the Domestic Violence Division, and we have as a group Synergy in St. Genevieve County for our residents. This is our contact information. The number is 573-883-0668, and our email address is synergy.ste.gen@gmail.com. If you'd like to get a hold of us, you can be anonymous, that's fine. And we're going to be talking about domestic violence today. Hi, Mary.
Hi,
we're back
Kathy.
again.
Good to see you.
We're going to talk about, we're getting further into the topic, we're going to talk about documenting. Mm-hmm. Some of your clients, I've heard you talk about that documenting or journaling is a good way for them to work through some issues that they're having to understand what's going on so they can go back by and look at it. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about documenting for us?
Sure. It's very important to document even a bad argument with your spouse or family of origin, because you never know what's going to go down after that. You may have legal issues that you're going to go to court with. So the more documentation you can do, the more detailed your documentation is. Perhaps a policeman came after you dialed 911 because your partner was punching holes in the wall next to your head, or threatening one of your pets, or destroying your computer, or smashing your phone, all sorts of things. But when that policeman comes, you've automatically got documentation, of course. But it's also very important to say what day it was, what time it was. And another purpose for documentation or journaling is that when you look back on some of these events, you see a pattern. You see a pattern of behavior by that other person that's, of course, abusive, and you suddenly realize that you need help. You need help because you're in the middle of trauma. And probably what's happened already is going to give you a lot of triggering in the future. And looking back through those journals will help you see, hey, I'm doing much better now than I was when I was in that terrible spot. I've gotten counseling. I become more assertive, not necessarily aggressive, but assertive. And I can help myself, and I can help my friends, and I can help my family become what they're supposed to be, get into a healthier relationship all the way around.
I've also had the experience of whenever you journal, you can validate what you've gone through. So say you don't have to just journal behaviors and things that you have with your partner. You can journal, trips to the shopping or trips anywhere or anything that you want to journal about. You can journal about it. But when you go back and look, then you can see what's happened in the past and what you enjoyed doing and things like that. But having it validated is really good, because you can look back and say, yeah, I really did that and I was proud of myself for doing that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just the violent things that you journal, but just anything that happens. You can journal the good things that you do with your partner or your family, and then you can go back and see that you had good times, but you might have written down bad times too, but you can see like a pattern that's coming out of that. And it doesn't have to be bad, it doesn't have to be good, it could be whatever it is, but it validates that what's going on and that you acknowledge what happens. It's good for some people to have that. And in addition to events and stuff, how you feel is important to journal. Can you talk a little bit about that, Mary?
I think in healthy families, we sort of take for granted that someone's in there putting photographs in a scrapbook or making memories for your grandchildren, taking pictures with your telephone and sending them back 2 months later and saying, look what great time we had. But it's important that we are making memories for our children and for a healthy relationship with our spouse. If you're not taking time to get away and not taking pictures of yourself when you're away, you're probably going to get stuck. So as Kathy said, documenting your life and journaling your life and putting together a scrapbook shows you that you're having a healthy relationship with another person. And it may also show you, oh my gosh, I am not doing anything special. In fact, my whole book of journaling is just about sad things, abusive things, and it's time for me to have a change in my life to get to a healthier spot.
Mm-hmm. And if you are just journaling sad things or whatever, it might give you an opportunity to get an attitude for gratitude and start thinking about some positive things that you have. It's just a way to reflect. I think documenting is very good, journaling, for anybody in any circumstance.
Yes. I agree with you, Kathy.
Okay, Mary, I've got another topic here, the myth of jealousy. Jealousy is one of those things that you think it's kind of romantic when your partner's jealous because it makes you feel so important and everything, and it can be good in very moderate amounts. But jealousy can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming, and there's a play between the person who's jealous and the one who's the target of the jealousy, and how do they find a balance, or what are some ideas to help with that? Let's see, some people think it's a sign of love, but it's not really a sign of love.
No, it's keeping track of every detail of your spouse's life is not a healthy thing. And that sort of jealousy, that over possessiveness, can become an obsession with people. And maybe they're doing it because maybe they're just terribly insecure, that spouse. But unfortunately, in my experience as a therapist, it usually means the other person is cheating or the other person is doing things they're not supposed to be doing, and they're acting in a very defensive manner by accusing you of taking too long at the grocery store. Who were you flirting with? Or you should have been home from work. Who were you with the last 10 minutes of the day? Or, blah, blah, blah. That's unhealthy. Going back to Bell Hook's definition of love is a combination of care, commitment, trust, and respect. It's not respectful to be jealous of another person to that extent, to be obsessive like that. Knowledge means you're going to be in a relationship where you know what's going to hurt the other person and what isn't. And loving someone is not keeping track of every movement they make in a day. That is not a healthy relationship.
Right here, I've got myth number 1 is my partner shouldn't talk to, text, or hang out with other people who might be attracted to them, and vice versa.
There are degrees of jealousy, and it changes with every single person. Maybe the least, if you don't have any self-esteem or confidence in yourself, you may be more jealous than the next person. But it's not healthy to be overly jealous of anyone. And it shows a lack of love when you are. So you got to back up and think to yourself, everybody has to have friends. And maybe your spouse is interested in playing chess and you're not. So you have to seek another form of recreation. Whether it's talking to someone on the phone, male or female, that has to be a compromise you make as a couple. But just because someone talked to someone of the opposite sex does not mean they're doing anything wrong. So, but that has to be an agreement you reach. But over jealous relationships are not healthy relationships.
So Mary, I was wondering what type of a person is a jealous type person?
Jealous people are very insecure, emotionally blunted, as we say as therapists, where they don't deal well with their own emotional responses. They may, instead of asking you, who was that guy that you were talking to when I drove up, they just go into a crazy rage and start breaking things. That's, of course, not healthy. So a person that gets overly jealous cannot control their emotions. They're very emotionally immature. So they need to talk to a counselor to discuss why they get enraged.
Mm-hmm. So what would be a beginning red flag that you would see in a jealous person that you could identify before it gets really bad?
Sadly, I see people that tell me terrible stories about their honeymoon. I've had a couple in my office. The first red flag was they were on a cruise, and the husband said, "Hey, you go on down to the bar, meet you there in a few minutes." And it was sort of a setup. The woman went down and ordered a drink, and someone sat up next to him at the bar, even though she had ordered 2 drinks, and the husband came down and just flew off the handle and almost started a fist fight with the guy. So that was a huge red flag to the bride on her honeymoon, that he almost got in a fist fight over this. So that's the time when you need to go to counseling immediately. Find out, why is this man so enraged when I was just talking to another person? Women can be very vulnerable, of course. So can men, but it's perhaps she was just discussing the weather. Doesn't mean that she's interested at all in the other person. Sometimes men like to corner women, but jealousy is a big red flag.
Mary, I've just been listening to you, and you were talking several times about seeing a counselor, and I know people that don't think they're that bad. They don't have to see a counselor. You don't have to go to a doctor when you catch a cold. They don't think it's as severe as to see a counselor. Where I think, in my experiences, if I see a counselor, they give me a different perspective on things. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about why we should see a counselor if it's not that bad? Kind of like the red flag when we should see somebody, but yet it's not that bad. Like if you have a cough or a cold, you don't have pneumonia, so you don't have to see a doctor type of thing.
I think that's a very good way to describe it, because when you're in an emotionally unstable relationship, it sort of feels like you're just off balance with a cold or something. Things aren't quite right. I mean, why am I feeling kind of fuzzy-headed about things, and kind of like there's chaos going on? Actually, that is pretty much of a definition of what trauma is. When we feel like things aren't right, when our head is kind of full of chaos, and the main emotion we feel is fear. That means you're in a traumatic situation that's not a healthy situation. Is it causing you pain emotionally? You're going to be causing your body pain soon, because emotional pain untreated turns into body pain. So you need to go to see a counselor before it turns into body pain. You need to see those red flags, like, I'm terrified. I'm afraid of my partner. I don't want to go home at night. Home is not my place where I can let down my guard and feel happy and work over the day. If you're feeling those things, that's the time to see a counselor. Just like when your leg doesn't heal, mental health, good mental health means you see someone in a preventative way, not when it's too late. So when you first start feeling that you're living in a trauma, please contact a counselor. There are a lot of mental health counselors, and there's a lot of free mental health out there with community counseling agencies, and with agencies like I work with, the Safe House.